Welcome back to the Soulful of It podcast, where the cosmos meet the cards and the mundane becomes magical. I'm your guide, 𝗧𝗶𝗺𝗀, and in this episode, we'll explore the astrological transits and tarot for the second half of May 2026. If you're thirsty for a soul-filling conversation, then you've come into the right orbit. So let's fill up your cup until you're soul full of it. Hello, soulful seekers! I hope the Taurus new moon was a grounding and re-energizing lunation for you. This Taurus season has certainly felt a little bit lighter since Uranus moved on from the fixed earth sign and into our mutable air sign, Gemini. And the rumblings of that shift have also been kicking up a lot of dirt in some of the most deliciously rebellious ways. One of my favorite recent examples being the protests that were at and leading up to the Met Gala, which was sponsored by the oligarch of Amazon, Jeff Bezos. And I just have to say, bless the creativity of the common folk who speak truth to power. We saw water bottles with fake pee in them and a sticker with Bezos' face on it left all throughout New York City to illustrate the overworked and underpaid Amazon employees who can't even get a fucking bathroom break. And we also saw messages from people, including the former president of the Amazon labor union, Chris Smalls, projected onto buildings that Bezos owns in New York, where they directly confronted his gross abuses of power. And these are just a couple of recent examples that are peak Uranus and Gemini meets Pluto and Aquarius, mover and shaker energy. And we have to remember that Uranus and Gemini, air sign, Pluto and Aquarius, air sign. So it's this energy of communication, but it's also a beautiful trine aspect as well. And we're going to be continuing to see how this trine plays out because these planets are not very far into these air signs quite yet. And even at the beginning of these transits, so much is already starting to unfold. So suffice to say that I am feeling really excited about where the coming years and these air sign transits are going to be taking us. With all of that said, let's tap the tarot and see what other wisdom we're integrating this May, beginning with a quick revisit to our rose of the month, the star, whose light takes on a different quality in the second half of the month. In part one, we met the star in the vulnerability of her healing promise, that naked figure kneeling at the water's edge, pouring from two vessels, one into the pool and one into the earth, while 7 smaller stars surround one large central star, all illuminating and filling the night sky with light, beneath which the woman is bare, unguarded, and also unashamed. In part 2, we return to her, with hope as an open window, but also as an active engagement. It's a thing that you have to consciously choose when the news cycle is ugly, when the plan doesn't go the way that you envisioned, when you're tired and the month has taken things from you that you didn't offer up willingly. The star, she doesn't flinch. She's still there, still pouring you a cup if you're thirsty, or water right back into the earth, a cycle of returning and replenishing that has no dramatic finale, just continuity, just the quiet, radical act of keeping the channel open. For the second half of May, the star asks, not do you believe things will get better, but are you willing to tend to the conditions that make better things possible? Are you watering the parts of yourself that need it, even when you can't yet see the growth for yourself? This card centers the month around something soft and simple, an invitation to open ourselves up enough to let healing happen and to allow the how of that healing to accommodate us as we ourselves are continuously evolving. Now, for our thorns this episode, we see the devil. In the traditional Smith-Rider-Waite tarot deck imagery, he appears as a horned, winged figure seated above a man and a woman who are chained to the block beneath him. And here's the thing that always stands out to me when I look at this card. The chains around their necks, they're really loose, and they could clearly break free. However, they have on some level accepted or allowed this seeming imprisonment by choosing not to slip those chains off and liberate themselves. Despite its name, the Devil Tarot card is not about evil. It's not about the devil himself. It's about bondage by choice, or more specifically, bondage by unconscious or subconscious patterns of familiarity. The things that keep us stuck aren't usually monsters. They're habits. The comfort of the known, even when the known is making us miserable. The relationship we keep returning to. The drag of a cigarette we keep succumbing to. The social media scroll that starts as 5 minutes and ends as an hour and a half of our lives that we'll never get back. As our thorns, the devil draws our attention to whatever chain or chains you've been pretending is tighter than it actually is. So what are you still gripping that you've actually outgrown? What vice, what narrative, what dynamic have you been calling comfort when really it's just familiar? This isn't judgment. It's an invitation to get honest, really honest about where your energy is leaking, what you're feeding that isn't feeding you back. The good news is that those chains, they are loose. They always were. But that won't do you any good if you refuse to summon the courage to slip the chains off and free yourself. Now, let's take a look at the root of our spread. The Four of Cups. A young person sits cross-legged beneath a tree, arms folded, staring at 3 cups sitting on the ground right in front of them. A mysterious hand extends from a cloud, offering a 4th cup out to them. And the person either doesn't notice or notices but chooses not to reach out for the cup as they continue to contemplate the options that lie before them. This is a card of consideration and introspection, but also, importantly, it's a card about the gifts that we miss when we're too deep in our own heads to look up. It's also the only card out of all 4 of these cards that we're talking about in this episode that is not a major arcana card. So this is the work that we're actually integrating into our daily lives, more so than the larger thematic influences that the major arcana represent that require surrendering. So there's a lot of surrendering, but there's also still some work to be done here. And at the root of the spread, beneath the hope of the star, beneath the challenge to break free that we experience with the devil, we find the 4 of Cups as our foundation. And that's telling, because it means that the ground we're standing on right now is really contemplative. But there's also a version of this card that becomes its own kind of chain. The 4 of Cups sliding right into the devil's dynamic when we're so busy cataloging what's disappointing or incomplete that we can't see the new possibility being literally hand-delivered from the universe. The root question here is, are you resting so that you can return, or have you been staring at those 3 cups long enough that the hand in the cloud has started to float away from you? Something is being offered in the second half of May, and while it might not announce itself loudly, it might not appear as what you ordered off of the menu of the universe, it would still be wise for us to be observant, keeping our eyes open for opportunities arriving to our doorstep from a variety of different means that we may not be expecting. And that brings us to our guidance or sun, which is the Tower, who last visited us in this exact same position in our February Part 1 episode. In the traditional 𝗧𝗏𝗺𝗀 imagery, we see a bolt of lightning striking a tall tower. A crown is knocked from its peak as 2 royals fall from the windows, and flames erupt from the structure all around them on their way down. As our guidance for the second half of May, the Tower is sitting above the star's hope, above the devil's chains, and above the Four of Cups' quiet contemplation, and it is saying, some things are going to fall apart so that better things can fall into place. The Tower's guidance is a mercy. It's telling us in advance, don't white knuckle what's already ready to go. The crown is coming off either way. So false authority, false certainty, false structures, they can't hold. The question is just whether you let go gracefully or whether you're in such deep resistance, you're still in the building when everything comes down. The second half of May gifts us guidance to embrace endings as they come, grant ourselves freedom from our own perceived prisons, open our eyes to offers as they arrive, and allow healing to happen in whatever way that it needs to. And all of this sets the scene for the shifts taking place in the stars for the second half of May. So without further ado, let's talk transits, beginning with Mercury coming home to the sign of Gemini on Sunday, May 17th. In this rulership transit, Mercury flutters about with renewed curiosity, eager communication, and an open-mindedness that's sure to shed light onto new ideas. This is especially true as it forms a conjunction with Uranus right away, emphasizing the unexpected or even strange ideas or thoughts that are coming through each of our unique channels right now. With Mercury and Gemini, these next few weeks, we enter one of the best networking seasons of the year. So if you're up for socializing, my best advice is to lean into that. Strike up the conversation and allow yourself to be surprised by the responses and interactions that you have along the way. I'll be doing a very Mercury and Gemini thing over Memorial Weekend as I am attending Norwalk, the Northwest Astrological Conference. And if you happen to be attending, come find me and say hello. I am very much looking forward to the opportunity to learn from some of the most incredible astrologers out there, as well as get to meet other astrologers and make some new friends that speak this language I love so very much. Leading up to the Norwalk weekend, we have some more transits to talk about, beginning with Monday, May 18th, when Mars will enter Taurus. Now, Mars isn't the most comfortable in Taurus because Mars rules Aries and Scorpio. And with Taurus being the opposite sign of Scorpio, that means that Mars in Taurus is in detriment. Translation: the campfire has been put out by a big shoveling of dirt. And while that is very smothering for fire, and it means you can't burn anymore, that's also not always a bad thing. Sometimes you need to put the fire out so it doesn't burn the wrong things down, or so that you can leave camp and go hang out by the river. Now, this analogy is just one of many ways to look at or unpack this transit, which we'll have with us for about 6 weeks, but it's not to say that all motivation is lost. It's more so that momentum has slowed down enough that you might be able to see the details as you drive by at school zone speed, instead of the blur that you might see looking out the window of a race car. Mars in Aries was a time of hiking hard and fast, trying to get to the summit, whereas Mars in Taurus is more so a walk through a nature park. The point isn't to run through it as fast as possible, but rather to soak in the sights, enjoy the sound of the songbirds, take some photos of some cool mushrooms or flowers while you're out and about. This transit invites moments of slow motion that enable us to take in more of what's unfolding. Mars in Taurus is a transit of trusting divine timing, and as someone who tends to move as quickly as they talk, it's one I know is truly good for my soul, and I bet it can be good for yours too. We have another transit on Monday the 18th, just a couple hours later, which is Venus entering Cancer. This is a 3-week transit of taking care of our communities, expressing love through acts of compassion, kindness, and emotional safety. It's very much the energy of our rose this month, the star, because it invites vulnerability, And that vulnerability can be a powerful catalyst for strengthening bonds. That said, Cancer is the crab, and crabs can definitely go missing in action, especially when they don't feel safe. That's when they will isolate within their crab shells, and it can be very hard to encourage them to come back out. Trust is a theme of these overlapping transits. And for Venus in Cancer, trust is a test of, if I show you the real me, the raw, unedited, unfiltered, hell, maybe even unbathed version of me, will you react with warmth or will you react with judgment? So as you're maybe feeling more sensitive yourself during this transit, keep in mind that that might be happening for others around you. And every time someone shows up imperfect and in progress, that's an opportunity for you to either deepen the bond between you two, building trust that can take root, or it's the opposite. A time when your not funny joke doesn't land, and instead it digs the trust plant right out of the garden of that relationship. And I don't say that to imply that we should dance on eggshells for each other, but more so just as a reminder for all of us, including myself, as I am often quite direct and also notorious for laughing at wildly inappropriate times. But it's true what they say, that people always remember the way that you make them feel. And if that's a feeling of unsafety or a fear of your judgment, you're not going to be granted the gift of their authentic presence. And in a world full of so much fake AI slop, authenticity and presence are two of the greatest gifts we can give or receive from one another. So let's be gentle and kind and also mindful, even with that Mercury and Gemini filling our heads with ideas and our mouths with words. But I've learned many times over the years that sometimes the most thoughtful thing to do is to simply keep your mouth shut. Speaking of talking up a storm, on Wednesday, May 20th, the sun enters Gemini and Gemini season officially begins. In my mind, the B-roll footage of Gemini season is a Bridgerton social affair, complete with the town gossip of Lady Whistledown. It's when social gatherings spark new connections, ideas are exchanged and expanded, and the concept of thoughts becoming things gets a nice big spotlight. And that's really where my mind has been with Uranus and Gemini, is around the topic of mindfulness and how if we can lean into the law of attraction and on a deeper level, the concept of quantum entanglement, that we really can bring to life anything our hearts desire through a combination of intention and attention. What you focus on, you find. So, what are you focusing on? And is that what you hope to find? Gemini is the storyteller of the zodiac. So Gemini season is a great time for rewriting the stories you tell yourself, as well as the story of your life. You have not been cast as any one kind of character. You can and should evolve. So in these weeks that the sun moves through Gemini, it's a powerful time to play around with the narratives of your human experience. On that same topic, we've got a couple of smaller aspects that follow us into Gemini season, the first of which being the Uranus cazimi, which is on Friday, May 22nd, the first day of Norwalk. How fun is that? Now, this cazimi is the first of several we'll see over the years of Uranus moving through Gemini, so it's going to be an annual event that we'll have again and again. And it brings with it an invitation to send messages differently. For example, if you were, say, out at a bar and you see somebody that you're like, I think I want to see if they want to hang out. And maybe the typical way that you'd show some interest is to buy them a drink. What if you bought them fries instead? What if you switched it up and surprised them with something that's unexpected? How very Uranus and Gemini of you. Alternatively, if you're going to like a community event or a birthday party and you want to make friends without the what do you do for work kind of common conversation starter, you could think up some different questions to ask people before you even get there. Like one that I saw recently, on Reddit actually was if you could only watch 3 movies for the rest of your life, or if you're not a movie TV person, maybe it's books for you, which ones would you choose and why? It's fun to ask as well as to answer. And that's just an idea, could be anything, but get creative with it. Go beyond your comfort zone, even if it's just an inch, and see if someone might surprise you with their response, even if it's just laughter. Laughter is medicine, after all, isn't it? And we could all use a little bit more of that. Then on Monday, May 25th, we have Mars squaring Pluto on Memorial Day. This can play out as an unwillingness to change or move, clashing with an altruistic call for prioritizing the pack over your own comfort. It can be a bit of a power struggle, but it can also be the harnessing of power that you direct towards an ambition or goal that steadily moves you closer to your desired outcome. Whether it has more of a positive or negative connotation will depend on your own unique chart, but generally speaking, I think this aspect is likely to bring an air of discomfort to the surface. And the good news there, though, is that it's not going to be here for long, and there is still potential to leverage this energy for more satisfaction than suffocation. And now we've arrived at our last transit topic for May, which is on Sunday, May 31st, when we will end the month just as it began, with another full moon. This time, the moon is in my sun sign of Sagittarius, and it's at 9 degrees, taking place at 1:45 a.m. Pacific time. The sun in Gemini is breaking from its recent cazimi with Uranus, infusing this full moon with the energy of unexpected revelations. Since the cazimi was exact a few days prior, any surprises surfacing now may have had a foreshadowing, which is really the perfect word for it, because again, Gemini is the storyteller, and foreshadowing, now that's a key element of writing any good story. That said, this full moon is in Sagittarius, who is the truth teller, the philosopher, and the adventurous spirit of the zodiac. So this full moon is ripe for learning, teaching, or taking a side quest of sorts. What comes to light now can serve as an activator for you to book the trip, sign up for the class, or start teaching or mentoring on the topic that sets your soul ablaze with excitement. There's also always belief work to be done when we're engaging with Sag energy, because Sagittarius is connected to the 9th house, which has associations with higher learning, but also higher belief systems, like religions or philosophies of life. You don't have to be a Buddhist to meditate, or you don't have to be a saint to stop drinking. It's a self-inquiry energy of figuring out what the building blocks of your own happiness and peace actually look like. And this world is a melting pot of possibilities. So for this full moon, a good way to engage with this energy is to identify what you want to release in order to create space for something new to come in. Skipping that Tower tarot card trauma and jumping right into the star energy that swiftly follows it. Jupiter, the ruler of this full moon, is building up to a square to Chiron in Aries, so that healing star energy is very present during this full moon. It's one of those clean the wound with peroxide first and it will burn, but bandage it up properly and take care of it and it will heal sorts of background pains that coexist, like grief and joy. There's a tension there around healing, and really we've been working with this energy since several of these planets touched Chiron as they moved through Aries. So likely the wound that's present during this full moon is not news to you, but that doesn't make it disappear. So the best course of action is to remember there's maybe a cut on your hand before you go wash your hands, and be mindful about it. Know where the wound is before you potentially expose the wound to an environment that agitates it. We also have some positive aspects with the full moon trine Saturn, reminding us that it doesn't have to be hard to be disciplined. The full moon is also in a sextile to Pluto, which adds an emphasis to this full moon mirroring the Four of Cups card that we talked about earlier. Opportunities may present themselves, and there's power in how we respond to them, including if we don't respond, because not responding is still a response. It's like when you don't say anything, you're still saying something with your silence. These positive aspects are bringing a supportive energy to the table of this full moon that says you can be spontaneous and responsible. You can nourish your soul by allowing yourself to feel your deep feelings, knowing that they are fleeting. And you might not always feel this way. In fact, you probably won't, whether that's a great feeling or a shitty feeling. And Sagittarius is the sign to go buy a one-way ticket without necessarily having a plan for how or when they're going to return to home base. But part of what makes that adventurous spirit continually spark is the unwavering belief in oneself to roll with the punches as they come and to remember that everything is figure-outable. Overall, I think this full moon will wash over us like warm water, more so than what felt like a cold plunge that we experienced with the Scorpio full moon that kick-started the month. And that brings us back to the tarot, where our rose, the star, reminds us that hope is a practice, and the second half of May is asking us to tend to it like a garden, even when the soil is feeling a little bit dry. The devil asks us to get honest about the chains that we've been calling comfortable, because the freedom we're reaching for is within our grasp if we're willing to let go of what has actually been holding us back. Then we had the Four of Cups gently nudging us to look up and see if something is being offered that we might not have seen if we hadn't lifted our chins and maybe looked on the bright side for a moment. Lastly, we had the Tower making its return because I guess it had more to say than what it said back in February. And that's to remind us that what is collapsing right now, it was never going to last anyways. So let it fall and remember that what's real will still be standing when the dust settles. If you're curious to learn more about your own unique magic or how the transits of this month and beyond are unfolding in your natal chart, you can book a virtual reading with me through the link in the show notes or in my Instagram bio at @SoulfulOfIt. Coming up in our June Part 1 episode, we'll talk about Mercury entering Cancer, the Venus-Jupiter conjunction just before Venus enters Leo, and the Gemini new moon. It was a joy exploring the cards and the cosmos with you as always. Stay grounded, stay curious, stay soulful of it, and I'll catch up with you in June.